This is the Capitol Rundown.
This is a record-breaker, history-making budget.
The magnitude of the budget matches the magnitude of the moment.
District leaders make the tough call of we can't meet the threshold today. We're going to cancel.
EVs are for everybody.
The best way to deal with high gas prices is to buy an electric vehicle. Then you don't have to buy gas at all.
Oh yeah, now we got everybody's attention.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Lauren Thompson. This week, Governor Gretchen Whitmer laid out her plan for a historic state budget. The $74.1 billion budget would pay bonuses to frontline workers and cut taxes for retirees and low-income families. Now, if lawmakers approve the proposal, there would be a 5% increase in base aid for K-12 schools, universities, and community colleges, and a 10% increase in revenue sharing payments to local municipalities. This is the largest budget in Michigan history and comes as the state is sitting on a pile of surplus revenue and federal pandemic aid.
We are on the precipice of really being able to make some long overdue investments in our state. And, you know, when COVID started, our experts were projecting a $3 billion deficit. We were looking down, you know, the cave of thinking we're going to have to cut 30% of our budget. We've turned that around.
Well, who better to break down the proposed budget than our own Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic. He and the Rundown's Andrew Burkle take a deeper dive into that and also talk the trucker protests at our state's border with Canada. Take a listen.
Big news this week. The governor released her new budget. What are the main takeaways in this new budget?
Big news. Holy cow. $74 billion is bigger than big. It's humongous. This is a record-breaker, history-making budget that no other governor in Michigan history has ever had the opportunity to perform and propose. Governor Gretchen Whitmer must believe in Santa Claus, because that $74 billion budget, most of it is thanks to the federal government, both the Trump and the Biden administrations, money that they've sent into the state over a year ago, which is still sort of sitting there. And the governor said, well, you know what, there's a pile of gold over there. Why don't we spend it? And so that was what she proposed this week, a $74 billion budget with a lot of money for everything. And as you might expect, all of the special interest groups which got a piece of the pie are just absolutely beside themselves. Normally at budget time, many of them go crawling on their hands and knees, lighting a candle, saying a prayer. Please, lawmakers, give us some money so we can sustain what we're trying to do. There ain't none of that going on right now, if you'll pardon my lousy English, because basically a lot of groups are getting exactly what they wanted, starting with education, bonuses all over the place, although this is getting some criticism that charter school teachers are not part of the program, and some Republicans are griping about that. But the governor laid out these bonuses not only for teachers to retain them and to recruit them, but first responders are also going to get a bundle of this money as sort of a reward for making it through at least this far in the pandemic. So there's plenty of money to spread around. Of course, the governor proposing where to spend is only one thing. Now the legislature has to decide, does she have it right, or can we improve on what she suggested? And she's open to negotiations, which will now begin in earnest. As they begin an election year, let's spend more money to help ourselves, state lawmakers and the governor, get reelected. That's my analysis, not theirs, but let's be clear. This budget has two elements: numbers about spending and numbers about getting votes.
Republicans have typically been pretty critical of Governor Whitmer. How are they feeling about the budget, and have they reacted strongly to it?
Well, that's a very good question. The angst and the rancor between the governor and the Republican legislature has waned quite a bit. With this spending proposal on the table, there are many, many things in here that Republicans will agree with, such as tax cuts. Now, they're going to nibble around the edges and maybe change exactly how that is done. But philosophically speaking, I think the governor, the Democratic governor, and the Republican leaders in the legislature are mostly on the same page. They do say there is money here that needs to be spent. It was given to us, so we're going to do it. It just remains to be seen who's going to get the final dollar amounts, and that we'll know within the next couple of months or so.
Well, we might as well stick with an all Governor Whitmer show here. Earlier this week, Governor Whitmer commented on the U.S. and Canadian border blockade and saying that it needs to change. What went into that statement, and why did she decide to be critical all of a sudden?
Well, what else could she do? I mean, this has the potential to bring Michigan to its knees. Already we saw 2 shifts out at the Delta plant for General Motors the folks there were told to go home and shovel some snow because parts are not coming in via 69, the freeway, vis-a-vis the Blue Water Bridge over near Port Huron. And that mess down at the Ambassador Bridge has the potential for really poking a hole in Michigan's economic recovery during this pandemic. And so naturally the governor can jawbone on this thing, but she has no power over the truck drivers in Canada. Last time I checked, they weren't U.S. citizens, and none of them are residents of the state of Michigan, so she can't threaten them on that front. So all she can do is use her bully pulpit, cross her fingers, and hope that somehow the Biden administration and others can get these truckers to back off and open up those bridges, because if they don't and this thing drags on, well, nobody wants to write that story because it would be UGLY, ugly.
Have there been other conversations, you mentioned President Biden, but other conversations about stopping something like this from happening in other places in the country? Because surely someone out there is thinking, this is working pretty well.
Yeah, well, look at the national reports are, and I'm not covering this story, so I'm just regurgitating what I've read, is there is a convoy supposedly headed from the West Coast to Washington, D.C. Wait till they show up. And there's some speculation that these truckers, they probably would not want to play football, but they might show up at the Super Bowl. Wouldn't that be interesting if folks couldn't get in to see the game? Uh-oh, now we're talking about something serious.
Yeah, you bring in football and then people get really upset.
Oh yeah, now we got everybody's attention.
All right, Tim, we appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next week.
Likewise, always great talking to you. Everybody have a safe and quiet weekend, okay?
Well, there's still a lot more ahead this morning, and coming up next here on The Rundown, we'll get an expert analysis of how the governor's historic budget could affect the future of our state economically. That's when the Capitol Rundown comes right back.